Bulbs, bulbs, and yet more bulbs. Hi, I'm Ian Roof and welcome to Get Gardening, and once again we're back in the gardens at East Ruston Old Vicarage. For this video it's raining again, so we're in the confines and the shelter of the cart shed, and I'm here to talk about bulbs because it is bulb season, and as you can see before me we've got just a very small selection of the bulbs that we will be planting here in the gardens at East Ruston. And this garden is known very much so for its spring planting of hyacinths, tulips, and of course all the other hardy garden bulbs. Now we use here in particular hyacinths and tulips within the pots. Alan, as you know, Alan does lots of videos, does lots of pot work, and that involves us layering up the bulbs as a bulb lasagna, which really you've seen before, to create a really good spring display. So the hyacinths come out quite early, and then the tulips, and then we put in 2 lots of tulips, we put in early and late tulips will come out obviously later on after the hyacinths to extend that flowering season, to make sure that we get the longest possible flowering period from those pots that we've got. And I really wanted to show you just the sheer volume of bulbs that we have here, and this is only a small amount. This is probably a fifth of what we'll actually end up planting here, because we do use quite a lot. But I also wanted to show you A, how the bulbs come in, and B, what you've got to be looking for when you buy them from nurseries or garden centres. So the first thing is that you want a nice healthy bulb. You want something which is firm. So check your hyacinths to make sure that before you buy them they are actually firm bulbs. The other thing some of you may need to be careful of, and this doesn't affect me, is that hyacinths will sometimes cause skin irritation. So you'll find in nurseries and garden centres they often provide little plastic gloves for you to wear, because some people can get a sort of bit of a rash from them, but for me it's fine. So firmness is important. It shows that the bulb is plump. The second thing is to make sure that the base plate, and the base plate here is where all the roots develop from, and it's important to make sure that that is also firm. And really you don't want to see any new roots on there, really. You may find that you've got some old roots on, that's absolutely fine, but you don't really want to see new roots on there. And the other thing is to make sure they aren't shooting. I wouldn't really want to buy them if they'd got roots developing or they'd got shoots in the top, okay? But apart from that, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, sometimes you'll find them loose and you can buy them, pack your own bags. Other times they will be pre-packed, but don't be afraid to check them to see actually what quality they are. And they're very well grown, these bulbs. They're grown in huge Dutch fields or glass houses. They are fed and plumped up to be the perfect size they can be. So that shows us that they're going to produce good flowers, and that's something that as gardeners we should consider, that when the bulbs are finished flowering in the garden we give them feed and we bulk them up in order to get flowers next year. But the hyacinths want to look like good plump bulbs, and the same applies to the tulips. We see we've got tulip bulbs here. Check the base plate again and check the firmness. And when I'm planting tulips at home, not here in the gardens at the vicarage, but at home, I tend to make sure I get off any loose bits of tunic. The tunic is that outer sort of jacket that the bulb has on it, which protects it. And usually it'll be quite firm, but if it becomes quite flaky, it's often a good idea to sort of flake those bits off in the potting shed first, because it's the flaky bits of tunic which will alert rodents in the garden, whether it be mice or something bigger that you put bulbs in, and that's often why they get dug up. So clean them up first before you actually plant them out. And then in terms of storage, well, you can buy them as early as you like in the season, depending on when the garden centres and nurseries have them. But the important thing is that when you get them home, you want to store them somewhere where they're not going to get warm. They're not going to start sort of perspiring, start sweating, because that's when you'll get rot in. And once you get rot in the bulbs, that's when you'll have problems with them actually developing. Sometimes we get them in here a bit later in the season. They will occasionally have a sort of a blue fungal bloom on them. But for us that's not a big issue because they get in the ground quite quickly. As you can see here in front of me, we store them all in these black plastic bulb crates. So there's very good ventilation. There's plenty of room for the air to move about with them. And apart from that then, you want to be thinking about maybe planting your hyacinths. If they're going to be just out in containers in the garden, any time from October onwards, but ideally with your tulips, and we would have discussed this before, ideally if you can leave them until November or December, when we have really good sort of cold weather and winter is well in, it will save any problems with tulip fire. And tulip fire is a fungus which can stay in the soil and it causes your tulips to come up with very distorted foliage and very distorted flowers, so watch that as well. Apart from that, we will have plenty more deliveries like this in East Ruston over the coming weeks, and it will be more bulbs right the way through the autumn and winter.